Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Building the DMV presented by Selective Hauling. Once again, I'm Jill Sorensen. I am very pleased to bring in our special guest this week. It is the Managing Director of Aurora Energy, Cord Briggs. Cord, I am so excited to have you. I know that you handle the Washington, D.C. office for Aurora. So many cool projects that you guys are handling right now. We're going to get into some pictures and kind of show our viewers and our listeners, they can kind of picture it in their head, what you guys do. Thanks so much for being here. I'm really excited.
Yeah, happy to be here, Jill, and looking forward to the conversation.
All right, so my first question to you, and when we were talking kind of pre-show earlier this week, I was really interested to hear how you got into this industry of sustainable energy or renewable energy and sustainability, which obviously from a construction standpoint, which is both of our worlds and certainly where I live. I mean, it's huge. We've got LEED certifications and certainly even not from the certification standpoint, people are just, it's really in the forefront of their minds. So how did you get interested in this industry?
Well, I guess I have the benefit of being a bit younger. So, as I was graduating college in like 2010, this was definitely an emerging industry, solar, wind. We've seen a tremendous increase since then. So I guess I in some ways got lucky, but you know, uh, it really started for me. I did some commercial fishing in Alaska. So for 3 summers during college, I did salmon fishing. Not quite as cool as what people usually think about, like deadliest catch kind of salmon fishing, but living on land, checking nets, it was still pretty awesome. And just seeing, the bears, the mountains, like the natural world up there. I'm from Alabama. It was nothing I was used to. Sitting there looking at that and thinking, well, what do I want to do now with my degree, which was in anthropology and music, which is not an immediate job fit. And it really clicked that protecting this or in some way working around environmental issues would be a great idea. Started knocking on doors actually for a nonprofit in DC, doing canvassing door to door, and I liked that. Did well at it, but really had the realization that I wanted to build and be part of the solutions, instead of just kind of advocating at the policy level for solutions or fighting bills we didn't like. So I ended up getting an MBA overseas, actually in Singapore, and then starting to work for a construction company that did solar. It was an EPC, engineering, procurement, and construction firm called Energetics in Singapore. And I never thought I would do construction. That wasn't my goal. I came at it more from an environmental, transitioning into renewable energy standpoint. But turns out I really love it. It's a great field to be in, and lucky to about a year ago come over to the U.S. and start working for Aurora Energy, which is a fantastic firm based in Columbia, Maryland, and we've been in business since 1994.
So I just want everyone to understand, in case people miss this, okay? So you grew up in Alabama.
Yep.
You went to college in Ohio.
That's right.
Right? Summers in Alaska. Career started in Singapore. And now you're in Maryland.
Yeah, I'll add another layer, not quite as exciting, but actually I'm in Arlington. The company's in Columbia, Maryland. Yeah.
There you go. That's a nice commute too. So hopefully the virtual world has helped a little bit with the commute there. But
definitely,
that's great. I think it's awesome. From a career standpoint too, and hopefully we have some younger folks watching and listening to this because it really hit home what you said. You didn't picture yourself kind of being in the construction industry. We're obviously looking to build our workforce in this industry, and so I think that if people kind of hear your story and your majors in college, like you didn't think that this was going to be a thing for you, but it was. I think that's really important for people to understand. It doesn't necessarily matter what your major is in college. If something is important to you and you feel strongly about it and you have internships and doors opening for you, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great industry to be in, and we kind of come in an interesting spot as a solar company because we're not the facade, we're not the structure of a building. We kind of sit on top of a lot of other trades, and we fall kind of in between the cracks of a lot of different trades. But I have really enjoyed the opportunities that we get to talk to general contractors and their estimating team and kind of see their perspective. And I was even looking over at the Woodrow Wilson Bridge in Alexandria, eating dinner, and I was thinking, wow, it'd be cool to build that bridge, right? So, once you get started, you kind of you see the how interesting building things really is.
Yeah, and there's so many aspects to it, like you said. I mean, solar energy, that's a whole nother aspect of construction that people, don't think about immediately, and obviously is becoming extremely significant and important in our world. So, just kind of building on that, how quickly do you feel like that sustainability aspect of construction has grown? Like, what have you seen in just your short years, and how much more growth do you expect?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think you mentioned something good, which is that I don't have a tremendous backlog of years to reflect back on. In the year or so that I've been with Aurora, certainly I've seen more and more inquiries coming in. But I think it's useful to kind of talk about Aurora Energy as a company, right? Because Aurora Energy, like I mentioned, has been around since 1994, which in the construction industry world doesn't sound that impressive. In the solar world, is very, very impressive. There just wasn't anyone doing solar when Aurora Energy was founded. And actually the founder, Fairbourse Majority, is still with the company, still running it as the CEO. And we've always had a focus on doing what's innovative and making it work, right? I mean, that's what you have to do in business. So he got his start in actually solar hot water. So completely different. It's really more akin to plumbing than what we do now, which is more obviously electrical. And he did that for a number of years. He did some specialty jobs on the White House, Pentagon, NSA, like buildings that didn't really care about the price tag. They just wanted solar. Solar wasn't very economic at that point in the late 90s. Then did a lot of residential, kind of following that curve of people who, again, didn't care that much about the return, really wanted energy independence or to do something good for the environment, more of a niche product. Now we only do commercial since 2016. And that is because the industry has moved to a different place. We've moved from being solar is a niche product. It's a thing for people who really care about the environment or are kind of electrical wonks, to something that is generating a good return for a business, right? With the sustainability layered in. You mentioned lead points or, a number of different certifications that solar helps with. So that's really only going to increase the reach of the industry. When we can say, hey, if we put solar on your warehouse, on your manufacturing facility, on your school, we're going to give you a 5 to 6 year payback, and then it's a 25-year investment, and you're going to get those lead points and have the kind of credibility from an environmental perspective for your clients or suppliers, becomes an increasingly winning proposition.
Absolutely. So, what would you say if you had to kind of gauge the interest and the reason that people and your clients will pull the trigger on installation from Aurora? Is it the lead points? Is it just that they know that it's the right thing to do? Is it economical? Is it the regulations that we see more and more of now, that the requirements?
Yeah, so I always think there has to be at least two reasons for someone to actually go with solar. So, I mean, the financial reason more or less always has to be there, depending on the project. There are some specialty projects, like we're looking at a university building that's going to have solar, integrated into its actual facade, and the most expensive panels on the roof. They don't care about cost, but in general, well, I mean, return is not the number one for them. But in general, for most clients, it number one has to make financial sense. Mm-hmm. And then from there needs to be some other desire, right? Although sure, like a 200% ROI is great, that on its own is not really enough for someone to try something new. So they have to have some desire to install solar. And that's various. but certainly, the regulations from our standpoint are helpful
Right.
because they're kind of trending in the right direction for our industry. That's things like, building energy performance standards in DC or Maryland that require higher Energy Star ratings, and solar can help companies, building owners achieve those, ratings, or LEED, as you mentioned, for newer construction. Um, and we also, in terms of regulation, have a really strong incentive in Maryland and DC, and coming in Virginia around solar renewable energy credits, where there's actually a marketplace for buying the kilowatt hours that solar, on a building or the ground produces. So in DC, it's super high. It's 43 cents right now per kilowatt hour of generated capacity from a solar installation that gets put back in the owner's pocket. In Maryland, it's about 80 cents, or sorry, 8 cents, $80 per megawatt hour. Yeah, it'd be nice if it was 8 cents.
Double.
So, there's definitely a strong regulatory environment supporting the industry, because, I think there is a good understanding that, it's the way to go. And, we really need that, at the moment. It's still a fairly young industry. So, that really helps the deployment side get larger and larger. And, whenever I see a roof that is just sitting there, huge roof, warehouse or something with no solar, I kind of shake my head and go, that's a mistake.
Yeah.
Why aren't they talking to me or someone like me? Because, the economics are there, and it's what we need to do, in terms of our kind of carbon footprint.
All right. So let's talk about those roofs then. I want to share a picture from a project. Sunbell was one that you had mentioned. So this is a big roof, and a ton of square footage there to add solar panels on that one. So explain the
Yeah.
economics. Why does this make sense to a client, as far as economics go?
Yeah, so Sunbell is a great installation, as you can see there. So this is in Jessup, Maryland, and they're a warehouser for really kind of fruit. That is their main product, and they have some cold storage as well. So their electricity bill is pretty high. So that's a good starting point. Really, the economics are always best when you can combine a large roof with a lot of electrical consumption. And then if that electrical consumption is in DC or Maryland, all the better. In Virginia, it's a little bit trickier due to the low tariff. So, in terms of the drivers of economic return, there's really a couple to touch on. So one was the solar renewable energy credit that I mentioned, the SREC. Again, about 8 cents in Maryland, or a whopping like 43 cents in DC per kilowatt hour production. So that's huge. You also have, what people usually think about, right, which is replacing your usage from the grid with solar electricity, right? So whatever you're paying for your electricity, be it 6 to 15 cents or something, right? Every kilowatt hour that solar generates on your roof or on the field next to your building or whatever, you're going to use that solar electricity first, and you're not going to draw that kilowatt hour from Pepco or BGE or Potomac Edison or Dominion, whoever it is. So that's a savings and kind of a profit as well, right? It's something you're not spending, which is great. It keeps operating costs low. You also have a tax benefit, which is another key piece of regulation that the government has put in. So right now you have 26% ITC tax credit. So you get 26% of the dollar value of the contract for solar installation that you can actually write off your taxes.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty high. And then you also have depreciation. If you can use that as a business, you can depreciate the entire value of the depreciable asset in the first year, bonus depreciation. So all of that adds up to a lot of money in the first year, and then you kind of peel off the rest of it for the next couple of years. And like I said, for a lot of these installations in DC, it can be 3 years. In Maryland, 5 to 7, you're completely paid off.
So, the economics are huge. I'm sharing a picture now of it's for Fitzgerald Auto Mall, right? So
Yep.
so Sunbelt, I understand, your second phase is actually going to be separate from the roof. It's going to be actually on the ground, correct?
Yeah, which is something a little bit unique, but yeah, Sunbelt had, obviously a lot of good roof space, which you showed in the previous image, but they also had a large, field that they weren't doing anything with, right? So we kind of saw that, and we saw their electrical bill, and we said, well, we're not going to match your electrical bill just building on the roof. So how can we get a little creative here? And Aurora Energy has always been, like I said, kind of an innovator. We always like to think out of the box, how to address client needs in the best unique way. So we proposed a ground mount, as it's called, a solar array as well, to really address more of that customer's usage and reduce their electricity cost over time.
Absolutely. So, which makes total sense. And I'll put this picture back up with a Fitzgerald Auto Mall, because I mean, that is like, there is not one spot on that roof that doesn't have solar. That's incredible.
Right. Yeah. That one's a beautiful installation to show. They had really built that garage, and they're a car dealership, so they want their cars to stay clean, right? That are in the garage, so they put a roof on it. And it's very easy, if there's a roof on top of a garage, for us to go ahead and put modules on it on a standing seam roof. And nice thing about that one is we actually don't have to penetrate the roof. So a lot of our rooftop installations, we actually don't have to penetrate roofs. We don't have to worry about getting a roofer to come check the penetrations, or do a professional sealing of TPO or whatever the material is. With this one, the standing seam, we actually can clamp directly to the seam itself with a piece of extruded aluminum. Same with Sunbelt. Sunbelt is not an anchored system. We use ballast, so in essence, concrete blocks, small pavers, to weigh down the system. And a PE, professional engineer, will tell us how much weight is needed for that.
That is, just the technology from a construction standpoint, the innovations that you guys have figured out have been awesome. I tried to share one more picture. There's a good picture where you can see the garage underneath there. So I loved what you had said earlier too, that, when you see a big flat roof and they're not kind of utilizing it, it's like they're missing out on another tenant. It's basically like another tenant that's just putting money in their pocket, every month, which is a great way to think about it.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I'm sure other people in the trades can comment on this. Once you kind of train your brain to start looking around at whatever your field may be, it's hard to turn off. So, I'll be driving around and, kind of slowing down on a bridge and turning over to see the rooftops. My wife's like, why are you? Oh, okay. Yeah. Eyes on the road. But, it is nice to have a job that you really enjoy, and, brings meaning. So, I do love that about solar.
Yeah, you're so right. I mean, I'm constantly, every building I go into, I'm looking up at the drywall, and I'm looking out back, see who the dumpster is, and there's like, it goes on and on. It's so funny. So when I looked at your guys' website, one of the most impressive buildings, from a visual standpoint, and I'm going to share this photo. That's not it. Why does it keep going back? Oh, there it is. Okay. Is the United Therapeutics headquarters. It's in Silver Spring. That is all I see are solar panels on this building, and the shape of it makes it so unique as well. That had to be challenging from a construction standpoint.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, we're very comfortable, like keep talking about rooftops, right? Even that rooftop array, although huge and beautiful, is fairly straightforward, from an engineering standpoint for us at this point. But this site has a lot of custom elements that required a lot more engineering and planning, and certainly challenges in the execution phase. One of the coolest parts of it, obviously, is what you see on the side of the building, which is basically a curtain wall or facade that is covering the entirety of that side of the building. And actually, it's it's even a little bit unique, because we worked a lot on the support for those solar panels, and it's maybe a little bit hard to see in that photo, but the modules on the side of the building actually are sticking out. So there's custom fabricated pieces of steel that are like in a triangular shape that are actually supporting the modules, sticking them out kind of like a fin. There's also an installation on that site on a wall. So yeah, so there you can see the fins a little bit better. What you see in the bottom right-hand corner there is actually over some parking as well. So it is a canopy, a solar canopy, and that one doesn't have a roof. So sometimes we will work with partners, structural partners, to actually install the steel members with the correct spacing of rafters and the like to anchor our rails and then modules on top of those. So yeah, that's in downtown Silver Spring. It's an incredible building to just kind of look over as you drive it and take a look at. And, that one is, their goal was really to offset 100% of their electrical usage through solar production, which we helped them achieve with this design. So they had that goal, and that really drove, their vision around, what they wanted that building to look like. I mean, that's one of those that not every, client is going to want that, right? But we were very lucky and happy to be able to work with someone who really had such a grand vision and wanted to make solar so foundational to their building envelope and appearance.
Yeah, it's so cool looking. Absolutely just eye-popping visually, and you can tell they're making a difference just by looking at the building, which is cool. So my last question is just, we talked a lot about the economics and how, when Aurora Energy started in the 90s, certainly wasn't very economical. But what have you seen now from an economical standpoint and the affordability of solar energy for commercial buildings?
Well, in the very micro level, like a lot of industries or a lot of trades these days, our prices have actually gone up very recently.
Materials and
materials. But overall, the trend line is really striking and stark, and stark in a good way. Prices have fallen like 500% for modules in the last 10 to 15 years. So that's the key cost component in your array. Obviously, is the actual solar panel itself. And people are always kind of wondering. They're saying, well, costs have come down so much. It's a newish technology. Should I wait? Is now the right time to install modules, or is there some kind of innovation that's going to come next year that's going to make me shake my head and wish I had waited? And the answer to that is really no. The basic technology we're using, which is crystalline silicone for generating power from these panels, is the same thing that Bell Labs invented back in the 60s. It's really just incremental gains. So, in the years that I've been in solar, when I first came in, maybe the panels that the very high end were producing like, 350, 370 watts per panel. Now you can get to like 400 and 450 if you're really ambitious. So every year it edges up just a little bit. And the nice part is the production and efficiency edges up, and the costs come down as manufacturing efficiencies pick up, and it's really a very high tech automated industry. Very incredible to if you ever have a chance to go see solar panels being made. It's really amazing that the work they've done to really bring down the costs and make it a more efficient process.
Sounds like a field trip.
Yep. Unfortunately, it's kind of hard to do in the U.S. There's not that many. There's one in Florida. There's a couple in Ohio, but a lot of them are overseas.
Yeah. Well, even better. A better field trip.
Yeah.
Well, this has been awesome, Cord. I obviously have learned so much through our conversations, and hopefully our listeners and viewers were able to learn a bunch as well. Just a great time talking to you, and I thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks, Jill. Really appreciate it. And if anyone has any interest in solar, feel free to reach out. I think our information will be in the show notes.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Cord, and thank you to everyone for watching another edition of Building the DMV presented by Selective Hauling. We'll see you next time.